Hey guys, Tucker Antell here with another Tucker's tutorial video. Today's Wednesday workout is one of my all-time favorite things to practice because I find it so useful and it really helps improve technique and getting your mind moving quickly. You can find a couple of pages of a larger document that I've made and I'm working on my website at tuckerantell.com under the tutorial section, and there's a link in the description below for that. So what I'm talking about today is called a tetratonic scale, which is simply a 4-note scale. It's very close to a pentatonic scale. All we did was just delete one of the notes. And there's a bunch of different tetratonic scales, but the one we're dealing with today is just C, D, F, G is how we describe that one. And I think of this as a pair of whole steps. So C, D is a whole step, and then we hop up and have another pair of whole steps, F and G. So, and there's a bunch of different ways you could think of this. I actually found that for me, it became very useful later on if I decided how I wanted to think of these 4 notes. What was the center? What was the name for this one? So, and there's no right or wrong answer here. If C, D, F, G sounds like it's in G to you, and that you're arriving at G, then you can think of that one as G. And you'll find that if you can think of all those 4 notes very quickly by thinking of one thing, it's going to help a lot in the future when you're moving them around all over the place. For me, I think of this one, C, D, F, G, as D. It's like D minor, for instance. So it's almost like I'm thinking of it as a flat 7 into the tonic and then 3, 4. That's just the way that I decided I wanted to think about it. There's obviously a bunch of different ways. You could think of it as a sus chord. I wrote out the different chord symbols that you could think about. I'd suggest just playing them and then thinking about what it sounds like to you. The reason that it's important to decide how you want to categorize this in your mind is because later on, if you are moving these around in minor thirds, half steps, changing the shape, it's really disorienting if you're thinking about it as different depending on where you're starting. So for me, C, D, F, G is just D. That's what I think of, and I play those 4 notes. There are a bunch of different ways you can manipulate these 4 notes. As you can see below on the sheet, there are 4 different combinations that I have created just by manipulating the pairs. So there is the original one, which is 1A, and then there's 2A, which is just flipping the first 2 notes. 3A is flipping the last 2 notes, and 4A is flipping both of them. If you start switching the first note and the last note and doing some more things, you get these combinations that don't quite sound as much like a tetratonic scale to me. And then right below that is sort of the descending version of that. I labeled it 1D, 2D, 3D, 4D. It's exactly the backwards version or the descending version of what's right above. So that means that there are 8 combinations for these 4 different notes. It's good to get to know them. And the way that I really like to practice these, and when it really becomes something to really start working on and putting the hours in, is moving these around. We'll start with the chromatic scale because that covers everything, and then it's a good place to start. So how I like to practice this is play the first one, C, D, F, G, and then move up the chromatic scale, C sharp, D sharp, F sharp, G sharp. So that would be the very first example I have ascending on shape 1A. Sounds like this. And so forth. Then you can descend on the shape right below it, 1D, and then you can ascend 2A, and then descend 2D, and so forth and so forth and so forth, going up and down the chromatic scale, using a metronome to make sure you're not rushing or dragging, and preferably slurring these for wind instruments so that you make sure that your fingers are being really clean. So I found that once I practiced this, it was a great thing for my technique, and I was able to move around the horn a little bit easier than I was before. The fun part starts next when you actually start to combine different shapes. I like to alternate 2 different shapes at a time. So what that means is I use shape, for instance, 1A for C, D, F, G, and then the next step in the chromatic scale, I actually switch shapes to 1D, and I just go back and forth like that. This I've tried in other scales when you're doing like sort of alternating directions as you ascend the scale, whatever scale you're playing. So let's just play that version where we're going to go alternating between 1A and 1D. So it's nice and smooth, and it has a different shape to it. Another combination that you could do is going up to A, and then the next one is using 2D. It sounds like this. So it ends up making you have to think and concentrate really hard, and it's just as much of a brain exercise as it's a finger exercise. And there are actually 28 different combinations that you can have when you're combining 8 shapes 2 at a time. So it gets kind of dizzying, and not all of them sound great, at least for every scale. But find one that you like the sound of, and you think is a cool sound and makes you think, and just go nuts with it. There's a lot of other ways that you can practice these, and that's covered in some more pages that I have. But we'll stop there for now. Once, like I said, that you've practiced this, I found that it's not necessarily something that you'd want to play in a solo, but it does help you think faster, it gives you better technique, and I find that I had much more flexibility in the middle of improvising, even if I didn't necessarily play these 4 notes. So that's one of my favorite things. I just thought I'd share that with you guys. The next video is going to be on Friday, when I'm going to be playing a lick that you guys have to finish. Comment below and subscribe, and thanks for watching.